Ola, ola, ola. Okay. Welcome back. I have no idea what to talk about today, so let's see. I had thoughts. Oh, yes, I do know what to talk about. So, two of my super dwarfs, well, one of them for sure just had its post ovulation shed. So, we should have some super dwarf baby eggs. Super dwarf eggs should be coming in about 30 days. So that'll be exciting. I put together a fire tiger het purple albino, 68.75% super dwarf to a 50% super dwarf ultra het anery. No, no. To a 75% purple super dwarf Hercules. So we're gonna get some fire tiger albinos, which is what I'm excited for. So very excited for that. I also think Queen is pregnant. So just gonna prove out, see if she's anery and some other stuff. But I will maybe get a snake because that's more entertaining. Okay, I'm back. I was gonna pull out a super dwarf, but the one I was gonna pull out had a nice poo, and I didn't want to get pooped on today. So, who's here? Someone I know? Stranger? Hello and welcome. The more you talk, the more entertaining it becomes because then we can have an interaction. That's what this is all about, trying to have some nice interactions with people. Let's just. Okay. This is Pearl, and she's a black-tailed Crebo. Oh, Oh. So I've come to the conclusion that the best way to breed snakes is to just take good care of them. Because sometimes we get caught up in all sorts of different things, what to do, and there's definitely feeding schedules that can help to get snakes to breed, like feeding females more when it's getting close to the breeding season, feeding males less. But the best thing you can do to get an animal to breed, if you're trying to breed animals, is to just take care of them properly, learn how to take care of them properly. And I don't know, I find it a little bit sad when people, the first thing that they want to do is breed before even spending the time with one animal and really knowing what's going on. Because I think I kept snakes for probably 3 years or more, just a few of them before I started breeding them. And I always tell people that's when I kind of had the most fun with them because I had less of them, so I had more time to spend with them and less time cleaning poop. I got this snake a couple years ago. I'm terrible with birthdays. Like I don't know when half my snakes were born. I just take care of them. I feed them, I clean them, I make sure all their needs are met, and if they're doing well and they're growing well, they get to a certain size, and I'm like, okay, now they're ready to make babies. And I have snakes like this too. So this is a black-tailed Crebo, and I didn't really plan on breeding her or anything. I just wanted one kind of as a pet. And they're pretty, like, I don't know, lots of people have asked if I'll breed them, and I have a friend that has a indigo, and I'm thinking about crossing them, so making some hybrids, which some people are totally for and some people are really against. I would have preferred to actually get a nice male of the same species, or like they're the same species, but they're kind of like corn snakes and rat snakes. So you can breed corn snakes and rat snakes, and they've been mixed to everything. So you can find like king snakes that are part king snakes, corn snakes that are rat snakes, and there's all sorts of mixing. But the big problem is that when these mixes are not labeled as mixes. So if you're ever buying or selling an animal that is mixed, you should be very clear and tell everyone about that. Hello, two people. Or do I know you guys, or are you just visiting? Feel free to ask any questions or converse, because I'm just coming up with stuff to talk about for the sake of it. So, basically, the guy that sold me this snake has some snakes that nobody else has. So, if you want one, you have to get it from him. And if you buy one from a pet store, it came from him. Because it's just like when certain species are rare, it's just there's only one place you can get them. And then that person breeds them, and then they sell them, and then a whole pile of different people grow them. And in about 3, 4 years, then all of a sudden you see more show up. But those snakes still came from that original breeder that started working with them. Unless you get something that's been imported, like a whole pile of, let's say, boas got imported and a whole pile of different breeders bought them. But that doesn't really seem to happen as much. The pet stores, the pet stores and the wholesalers are the only ones that really are selling wild caught animals or imported animals. For the most part, when you go to breeders, especially smaller breeders, they're not they're not importing animals. They're breeding their own and selling them. Or somebody might really have a specific project. Hey, I really want to get into false water cobras or something, and they find a way to get them, and then that person is going to have to spend years kind of establishing those animals. So, as, like if you're around the reptile world, you start to know, oh, that came from this person, that came from this person, because it's a small knit community. But it would be awesome if you saw more of these here. And then it's very interesting how we have a lot of animals that we used to see a lot. Hello, a person. How you doing? Anything you're curious about when it comes to snakes? Or a topic you'd like to hear about? There are lots of animals. Oh, hey, Raven. Okay. I'm used to you as whatever you are in Twitch. I forget I something. I'm so bad with remembering those things, but good to see you. See, YouTube suggested that I should do a live stream at 4 o'clock, so I tried it out. I was free today, so got my computer built and it's working, so that's exciting. It's a little faster. It's a lot faster, so makes editing even just like when you're I'm always adjusting the metadata on my videos, so when I go in and fix things, it takes forever to load, and now it loads a lot faster. Yes, eyes up, Guardian. Very good, very good. So I was saying that like it'd be nice, like in the past there used to be a lot more variety, and now rules are coming, so animals are not being allowed to be imported as much, which is good because we don't want to be taking the populations from the wild. But there's so many, like in some ways it's nice to have wild because you get fresh blood, because all the animals lots of the time are breeding, are related to each other, and I haven't bred. I think I've bred out of all the pairings I put together. I did one that was related, and they had a perfect litter, healthiest babies I've ever had. So that just so it's like from firsthand experience, I can't say that I've seen anything negative from inbreeding, but then I haven't inbred very much, so I don't know. I think that that's sometimes people just get on their high horse over, but if you don't have to, then don't. Like if you're trying to prove out some genes, you're trying to get a certain look, then I see it happening. But if not, then why go out of your way to do that? Which so many times snakes are also sold in pairs. So as a breeder, it's nice to kind of have different lines, so different families of snakes that you're growing and working with. Because if you're growing up this family and that family and they're a little bit separate, then you can breed from the different families into each other and keep track of that, so that you're not just breeding snakes, growing them, breeding them, growing them, breeding them, growing them, and then you just end up with like inbreeding to the max. Yeah, so there's lots of animals that we saw a lot before that now we don't really see anymore, and it's just like, why? Because people weren't able to get them established, or they're hiding them somewhere and we don't know about them. But the thing is that if somebody is working with some creatures and breeding them, eventually there's more and more, so they're going to be selling them. Otherwise, they're just going to get more and more. So there's no point in breeding a pile of like rare animals if you're not showing them to anyone, unless you just discovered like some brand new gene. And you're if you do discover a brand new gene, you have to spend years to kind of prove that that gene is genetic and that it's not just a freak of nature. So let's say that I bred this snake and I had babies, and one of the babies was totally a different color. I would then keep that baby and breed it back to her because whatever gene that she passed on, she would be carrying. So I would have to breed that baby back to her if it was a boy. And if it wasn't a boy, then it ends up being more messy because it's like, how am I supposed to prove that this is genetic if none of the other ones are like that? So in that case, you would have to, if it was a boy, you'd raise it, breed it back to the mother, and then you see if the babies are portraying the genes or something crazy that was passed on to that baby. Or if it was a female, you'd have to raise the female, you'd breed the female, and keep one of the boys and breed it back to the female. So it'd just be like an extra 4 years of work. It because with males you can breed them after a couple of years, but with females you want to wait like 4 years before you can do anything, and that's why all these projects end up taking forever and also costing a lot. So simple example, I sell hypos for about 200 for $200. I sell aneries for 250, but I sell ghosts for 400. So two $200 snakes, those genes into one combine, and now it's a $400 snake because it's carrying both those genes. And in buying that one snake, you have the two genes right away that you can work with. Whereas if you tried to make that two gene snake, so instead of spending the $400 on one snake, you spend 200 on one, 200 on another, you raise them, then you make it. You already spent the $400 buying them, and you spent 4 years to make that snake that you could have just bought in the first place. And yeah, it would have cost you twice as much as each of those single snakes, but it would be, you'd already be there. You'd save yourself having to take care of two animals. You'd save yourself 4 years and twice the cleaning and twice the food and all of that. So anytime that you are able to kind of get the next level up, if you're looking at it like that, if especially if you were going to get into breeding, you'd want to spend that money to get the most that you can, because it all ends up coming back. Whereas if it's a pet, it's something totally different. If you just want it as a pet, get the one that you think is the prettiest or whatever you want. Like if you just wanted a plain boa, then get that. But I think another thing that people get the snake, they're so excited. It's like they get tunnel vision. They get so excited to have an animal, and they just buy the animal, and then they're like, I'll get everything for it after. There's a lot of rushing, and it's just like, there's no need to rush. You're going to have this snake for 30, 40 years. So it's just like, if you cannot wait, if you can't wait a couple months or a couple days or even a year to like get the one that you want, like, you're going to have it forever. So there's no need to rush. It's better to take your time. I'm rambling. Hola, hola. How's everybody doing? I wonder if is there a way to kind of see who is even in the chat? Participants. See, I don't see any participants. I just see concurrent viewers. How's your day going, Raven? Did you do anything interesting today? Okay, so spider ball python breeding. I think that if you have a spider ball python that is like really wonky, you shouldn't breed it. Like, and even if you have one that isn't, unless there's really a purpose, you're better not to. Like, my first snake was a spider ball python, and I got that like 9 years ago. Before people said like no one told me it had a wobble, and I didn't really even know there was anything wrong with it. So what later on, like 5, 6 years later, when all the kids started getting ball pythons, like yeah, there's a lot of adults in the business, but I find that there most of the people in the reptile business are kind of like in their 50s because they did it like back in the day, or they're like a pile of like teenagers that are getting into it closer to now. The middle ground, kind of where I am, there's some, but I feel like there's kind of less of us. Like you look at you look at Nerd and you look at Kevin I can't even McCurley. I can't say his name, but he's been doing it for his whole life. You look at Brian Barchuk, like the most famous guy, and he's an older dude too. Like not that old, but like you know what I mean? There aren't as many that are in my age group. I think a lot of them are young and a lot of them are older. So, yeah, back in the day, no one told me about any of that stuff. So for me, I always tell anyone. Most of the time, people know that spiders have the wobble, and some people want it because it has the wobble, and it just, I think that they feel like I'm a little crazy, so I want to get a snake that's a little crazy too, and that just makes the world all right. I don't I don't feel any more attached to my spider ball python because he has a wobble. I'm more concerned he's healthy, he eats. All my spider ball pythons that I have produced, and I've produced probably less than 10, they've all eaten excellent. They've all like been great animals, and they don't have that much of a wobble. Like right now, I am pairing one of my spiders, but it's Jack. Jack is a spider pastel lesser, so he's a queen bee, and he strikes at his food and eats it just as good. Is better than most of the other ball pythons. So it's just like I can show you my blue-eyed Lucy. She's beautiful, and she'll miss her food like 5 times. And I'll show you my spider ball python, and he'll get it the first time every time. So it's more that the spider gene has some sort of neurological problems. The degree within each snake is different, and sometimes they don't seem to have much, even if they have a little, and some of them also seem to have it a lot. And I have not had one out of the like 6 or 7 that I produced. I haven't had any that have been crazy. If anything, like they just shake when they get fed. But I'll go get Jack, and I'll show you. Okay, so this is Jack. And Jack is a queen bee. Jack has assumed the ball position. So yeah, I think he's one of my prettiest ball pythons. Um, and I'm gonna keep breeding him with stuff. And but I'm not trying to make spider ball pythons. I'm just trying to stack more genes. So he is spider pastel lesser, and I'm putting him to a Mojave. Yeah, I'm putting him to a Mojave. So I'm gonna get more blue-eyed Lucies, and with yeah. I think that the two blue-eyed Lucies that I have are actually pastel also, because they have like a yellow stripe down their back. It's tricky because as soon as you do like the blue-eyed Lucies, you can't see. You can't, like, it gets rid of all the pattern. So it's kind of cool to make like these really light ones with less pattern. But and he has like on down the sides, he has like really bright yellow. He almost reminds me of these the ones called like bamboos. But he's a beautiful snake. He's a healthy snake. Always eats. Hopefully he's a good breeder. There's nothing really wonky about him. You gonna do a twisty? Like, so I don't feel strongly about not breeding or breeding spider ball pythons. That other snake that you saw eats snakes. So let's say that I had a spider ball python that came that was like a messed up old twisty baby. Even if I had a snake that had like a kinked spine, I would just feed it to Pearl. Call me a terrible person, but it wouldn't bother me. Like that's just what I would do. And it's just like, if anybody has a problem with that, stop feeding rats and mice to your snakes, because rats and mice are actually way smarter than snakes are. And that's just I don't know, logical reasoning to me. In the wild, most of them are not going to live. Most of them are not going to survive. So when we produce litters and clutches of snakes, and we have 30 animals that survive, that's unnatural. Like, and keeping snakes that are weak alive, like if you want to do that and keep it as a pet, baby it, sure. But you should not take snakes that are weak, raise them, and breed them, because then you're creating weaker animals. Okay, guess what? Charlie's here. Charlie's coming. Yay! We got another person involved. Hey, 5 people watching, why don't you join in? Ask some questions. Engage in conversation. Start a debate. Let's make this more exciting. I don't want to have to resort to singing Disney songs again. Do, do, do. I've been listening to, I don't know if you've heard, what's his name? There's this Russian dude, and he can sing like crazy high octaves. His name is Dimash Kudeberge, and he has like one like he has an amazing voice, and he can sing unlike any other dude in the world. I think he can like hit those high notes that Mariah Carey can, but it's just like he has this one good song that's so good, and every other one it just feels like I'm watching some sort of like, I don't know, like kumbaya type of songs. Like he needs to have somebody write better music for him, because then he'll take off. Like he's amazing. He's probably the best singer in the world. But just doesn't have any good songs. Okay, if you have a spider with a wobble to the point where it's biting, so yeah. Yay, Charlie's here.
Hey, how you doing? Only one.
Oh, this is so terrible. Okay, come. Well, put your shoes off and let's take a look. Oh,
What's that noise?
it's Avery.
Why is she crying?
No, she's just talking. Avery and Donna are here.
Oh,
Okay, so we're gonna offer a pinky mouse to an African house snake. So I'm gonna stick that in there, and then we're gonna come right back. You just sit on the couch, pull the thing so that you're comfy.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I just put it in with one of them.
it's still alive, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, it's so sad.
It was very difficult. She squealed. And,
With the mommy?
yeah, she was really upset. I get used to it eventually.
Get used to what? Yeah, no, that was weird. I just put a little baby mouse in with one of the African house snakes because all 7 of them need to eat and none of them have. I also pulled out a frozen thawed to try doing my wiggle jiggle.
She's still alive. It's still.
Yeah, it's still alive. I'm not like I don't know anything.
Jesus. Oh, you know what?
Oh.
I need to wash my hands.
Okay, go wash your hands.
Because I had mice.
I don't think so. It's definitely not an inbreeding thing. It's connected to the gene, and there's certain genes with ball pythons that are just a little wobbly. The spider just got like really hated on, and it got hated on because of people that are just being self-righteous. You know, it's like there's people out there that want to look good and say like they want to be kind of like I can't even explain it. But if you're gonna say that we can't breed spiders, you end up getting rid of a lot more animals probably, because it's just like people have been breeding these for so long that they have so many in their collection that now all of a sudden, let's say they had 50 snakes that have the spider gene and they're not allowed to sell it. What are they going to do? You think they're going to take all 40 of them and keep them as pets and give them good lives, or just give them away? They're not going to do that. They're going to probably end up euthanizing them. So by banning them, you're killing them. And by just letting them be, they survived in the wild. So it's like things like this, like a snake like this wasn't discovered in the wild. It was made by people putting genes together, single genes, to make snakes like this with 3 genes. Some have 5 or 6 genes. So you would never find that in the wild. And the spider gene is a single gene that survived in the wild, that eats properly, that breeds properly. So it's just like it has everything that it needs to survive. And I can tell you that it's not in pain. Because when an animal is like it might be struggling, and maybe like if it has it really bad, it's suffering a bit, but it's just like it's when a snake is in actual like pain, they're not pleasant. They don't want you to come near them. You think about a person that's in a lot of pain. They're not usually happy. Like some people deal with their pain better than others, but you can think about somebody that's just having a bad day, they're in pain, they don't want to be bothered. In the same way, when you have a snake, let's say not even the spider gene, like I've dealt with snakes that have been abused, so it's like they haven't been fed enough, they haven't been given water, or they are infested with mites. You take an animal like that, and then you go near it, it's going to strike at you, it's going to be scared of you because it's suffering and it's scared. You don't get that kind of like comfortable confidence that you're going to get out of an animal that is in good condition. So there's other genes. Yeah, there's other genes, like for instance, I think cinnamon. But you have to understand, I'm not really the ball python guy. I'm the boa guy. And with boas, there's a gene called motley. And if you breed a motley to a motley, you end up getting super motleys. Now, motleys are okay on their own, but the moment you put 2 copies of the gene together, they end up making snakes that are going to die, that are basically, they can survive. Some of them even survive like 5 years, but they're just slowly dying. So something like that, I'm totally against. Like, I don't think that you should breed motley to motley. The only way that I'd say you can breed motley to motley is if you're going to take those babies and feed them to a snake that eats snakes. Like if that was your plan to use them as feeders, then I'm okay with that. And I'm totally okay with people, let's say, feeding their snakes to other snakes. It's the same as feeding rats or mice to other snakes. I feed any of my snakes that die to other snakes, or if, like for instance, with leopard geckos, if I have a leopard gecko that's bones are not developing properly, that just looks like it's not perfect, I'll feed it to one of my snakes. And that to me is a good thing, because it means that I'm not allowing that animal to end up in the market, because so many people are putting those crappy animals in the market. And there's no way that I want to take a snake and feed it to another snake just on its own, because most of the animals I'm producing are $150 and up. So would you want to take $150 and toss it in the toilet or throw it in the trash? Like, no. Why would I want to get rid of an animal when I could sell it? But if I had to choose between getting rid of an animal that isn't healthy, that isn't doing well, versus selling it, I'd rather not sell anyone an animal that is not in good condition. Yes. Exactly. I don't want to waste anything. It's one of the nice things, even I feed my snakes on a schedule that if anyone doesn't eat, I can just toss it to another one. Yeah, so Charlie started breeding mice. His first successful breeding, but it's kind of depressing because he's bred these cute little mice, and their purpose is to be fed. And I know he's he's a little bit more soft than I am.
Yeah, right now.
My little softy. Raven, you're hogging everything, but no one else is saying anything. Anybody want to talk about anything? Give us a topic. Let us run wild. I'm going to drink some water and fetch another snake. Why don't you tell them something?
Which one's this one?
That is Jack.
Oh, this is Jack. Boy, he's gotten big.
Well, he's not as big as yours. He's like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah. I know, mine are bigger.
Exactly. Don't talk to me about getting big. He's little.
He's little. Yeah, he is little. Little guy. What is he, spider? And something else? I get that one gene confused.
Spider and...
Is he cinnamon?
Oh, Charlie.
I don't know. I'm the worst. Is that Bond?
It's Bond. It's Bond, and he's been bonding. I have it on like the weakest settings, so like whatever. Oh no!
Now you're all fuzzy. Okay, now we're starting.
Very good. Are you able to hear us clearly and everything? Let's talk about breeding and the making of different boa morphs. So, let's talk about breeding and the making of different boa morphs. So, with the morphs, and add to that, if there's something specifically that you want to know, add that question so that I can answer it, because that's very vague. But with the boa morphs, basically, the snakes, like with ball pythons, there's so many morphs I can't even keep.
We can't keep up, and they keep creating new ones. You know, and it's there are some names that are like longer than marmalade.
Yeah, there's so many different names and stuff. There's so many different things. And with the boas, that's one of the things I like about the boas is, even though there's a little bit less variety. Like with ball pythons, you get some crazy colors. With boas, you still can get that too. I find the neat thing is that with any of them, so with boas and with ball pythons, when they're born, they're so beautiful. And lots of the time as they get older, they fade and they kind of get more lackluster. So it just being able to kind of like anticipate and think about what the genes are going to look like as they get older, so that you can kind of start making snakes and getting them to kind of look a certain way as they're getting older, knowing that, okay, it's going downhill. It's not going to be as bright as it was when it's born. You can actually find like some animals, like for instance, IMG, this is gonna get darker, and I specifically fell in love with this animal. there's a lot of IMGs out there, and I'm sure there's lots that have this too, but I love with this one that it hasn't been it. I don't want it to go totally black. I do want an IMG eventually that is totally black, but what I love about this one is it's just got a nice balance of some black and some color, and with the face, it's just like the front of the face is like black, and the middle of the face and back of the face is not. So it's just, I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of like a pit bull or something. Like, like one of the I don't know, one of the dogs that kind of has like
The mixed
those,
colors, the brown
yeah,
and black.
yeah, or like,
Rottweiler.
it gives me the, yeah, Rottweiler or something look. I really like that. So with 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 boa genes, there isn't like, so as breeders are working with a whole pile of different genes and animals, once in a while something could pop up, and then it looks totally different, and you got to keep it, and then you have to prove that it actually is genetic. If you can't prove that it's genetic, it could be just a paradox. So it could be just like a freak, kind of. I'm just like, I don't know. It's so terrible to call a person a freak because it's just like it's different. Like if a person,
It's unique.
yeah, is unique.
Yeah, that's a better word than freak.
Because now the next example, then I make it worse. Like if an albino person, I don't know if the genes work the same with snakes as they do with people. Not really
No, I
sure.
don't think
I think it's different. So yes, now we got a question. An eclipse blood, are there any gene that produce blue in color yet? Okay, so you'll hear people say like lavender when people see like white. Like for instance, they'll see this in a snake where it's like white at the bottom on the sides, and they'll call it lavender. And lots of the time it's just white. With the blue, we don't have any blue boas yet. Uh, IMGs and stuff like that are really dark. They kind of have a blue sheen, but we don't have blue boas yet. We have some really crazy albinos that are like that do look kind of lavender and albino, and that's like the closest you could get to blue because it's lavender. But like, so for instance, eclipse is not a gene, it's a combination of genes. So the eclipse is basically when you have a motley and a leopard together. I believe a motley leopard is an eclipse, and it's a specific look, but it's not a gene, it's a combination of genes. So blood is a gene. So here we got an IMG is a gene, and it's hypo, and that's a gene. And there's single genes, and then there's like nicknamed combo genes. So for instance, a moonglow. There's no such thing as a moonglow gene animal. The moonglow is made of the albino, anery, and hypo all together. When you have those three together in a combo, you call them a moonglow. But there's no such thing as a snake that, like, there is a moonglow snake, but it's not carrying one gene. It's the combination of the three genes. And then you can get even more there. So you can have a motley moonglow. And it's interesting because at what point do you name them and what point do you not? Like, I made the first hypo motley sterling, but I didn't give it a nickname. Like, because I'm just like, it's a hypo motley sterling. I think that you'd have to, for you to give it a name and really for it to stick, like it really has to be something, I think, super different, or when a new gene comes, because people are giving different gene combinations different names, and then it gets confusing, and then you get like idiots out there naming their snakes all sorts of things. Or people have heard of like the two lines of albino, like coral albino, lipstick albino, and most people don't know what those lines are, where they're from. They don't know the backstory, and they want to sell their snakes, so they add those titles to the snake to fancy it up and try and sell it, and that's wrong. And I don't even know what lots of those are. So the IMG, what makes them get darker over time? It's called increased melanistic gene. It's really cool because melanin, so like the body produces melanin, and the black the black increases over time. So as they get older, their body produces more melanin. And there are certain genes that slow it down, and there's certain genes that kind of speed it up. So hypomelanistic is a lighter snake with less, like it has almost more pigment but less melanin. So that's why with this one there's a nice contrast. When it comes to science, like I don't even know. I don't know if we know why. We know what it does, but I don't know if we know why it does it. That is a good question though. Like that's something to research, because when it comes down to like the science part of things, I'm honestly not very good. I'm very good with the practical and with the studying and the watching and seeing kind of what the snakes are doing over time and the behaviors. Like that's the things that I'm looking at the most. When I was working on a IMG video, which like I'm working on still, and I lost. I deleted I recorded it and I wasn't recording audio, so it's just like it annoyed me so much because it's like I put all this work into a video, I didn't have the audio, and I just haven't fixed it. But I need to still do that. But so I just recently did try to find all the stuff I could find on IMGs, and still everyone's saying that it's a co-dominant gene, which means that there should be a super form, but I haven't seen any super IMGs, and I don't think I've seen anyone claim to have super IMGs. And a super IMG would just produce IMGs. But I have heard someone say that when you put IMG to IMG, sometimes you'll create a boa that has totally black eyes. So that's interesting. But yeah, I haven't seen anyone have an IMG litter that is all IMG babies, because that would basically prove that there's a super IMG. Okay, head-to-head animals to produce a normal animal. So I understand, I can explain why head-to-head animals produce a normal animal. Let's get, okay, let me see how I can do this. I'll get a snake to show you. Okay, so now watch this. This snake right here is a ghost, a motley ghost. And then this snake here is a hypo-motley. So this is a hypo-motley anery, and this is a hypo-motley. The moment that you have hypo and anery together, it's called a ghost, which is just a hypoanery. So now these snakes are carrying the exact same genes, but if you look at this one, it has red pigment, And if you look at this one, it has no red pigment. So this snake is visually anery, and this snake is het anery. Now, if I breed these two snakes together, this snake is carrying anery, and this snake is carrying anery. So this one is het anery, and this one is visual anery. So when I breed these two together, I'm going to get about 50% aneries. All of them are going to be carrying aneries, but 50 of them are not going to be showing about 50% are not going to be showing, because this one is passing on the gene to everyone. Because this is visual. So this is visual anery. It's going to pass the gene to every baby. But this one is het, so it's going to pass it only to half of the babies. And I know that this is carrying it because its father was an anery. So when you have the visual of the recessive gene and it's into pairing, it's going to pass on to everyone, but you're not going to see it. But now what you're talking about now is if I took two of these snakes that are both het anery and I breed them together, they get a 50% chance from this snake and a 50% chance from the other snake. So when the two breed together, that's basically about a 25% chance of getting a visual anery, and all the others will not be looking anery, but they will have a chance of carrying it. They'll be basically 66% het aneries, but they'll have about a 50% chance of carrying the anery. Okay, so my son will, what would I call these? See, like, to me, you just call those albinos or sunglows. Like, there's nothing less or more to me in having a sunglow or an albino that doesn't have that background on it, right? Like you just say the offspring or the parents. I had a coral albino male and I put it to just a sunglow female. And like if you want to call them coral albinos, like it's more of a bigger deal to the person that started calling them that in the first place. But just somebody started calling them that in the first place. So if you, let's say, spend 20 years growing some snakes and trying to make something specifically, and then you give them a name and a nickname and it sticks, that's something that you've spent years working on. So you kind of have the right to make your animal stand out. And the only way it's going to stand out is if it's something that everybody sees and they're like, yeah, that's the guy that mixed this gene with that gene, and then he did it like this, and he created something special, like the sunset boas and stuff. There's another guy. There's a guy in the States that is mixing hog islands with ghosts, and I love that as an example. Like, he makes the prettiest ghosts I've seen, and he hasn't nicknamed them anything, and you could call them hog ghosts because they're like Hog Island mixed into ghosts, and they're the brightest ghosts I've ever seen, and that's like what he's worked on. So if he could come up with a cool like marketing term to help him sell them better and to like stand out and be like, hey, I got one from that guy, then great. But that's all it is. It's not well, like all majority of the color and genes in boas are recessive. The color genes in boas, the more extreme ones, no, because it's just like when you look at IMG is not recessive. When you look at hypo, that's not recessive. There is a decent amount of recessive genes, but there's also a good amount of codominant genes. And I would actually say the codominant genes affect the color more. Like, it's just that we have more I don't know. You'd have to look at the list, but think about this, right? When you look at albino is recessive. It gets rid of all the black pigment. So it's not really adding color, it's taking it away. Then when we look at anery, same thing. Anery gets rid of, well, albino gets rid of the black pigment. Anery gets rid of the red pigment. So you're taking color away. So those two recessive genes are taking colors away. Then you look at the sterling boas, and they're getting rid of pattern. So you totally get rid of the pattern. Then you have some that are like the square tail, which is mostly affecting pattern. You get the so you're not really affecting color as much. On the other hand, you look at motleys. Motleys make snakes darker. Hypomelanistic, they make them more red, they make them more orange, more bright. When you look at IMG, it makes them like super dark. What are like some of the other ones? When you look at jungle, jungle kind of changes, really makes the colors pop. So I would say that the codominant genes probably affect the colors a lot more than the recessive genes, because mostly the recessive genes are taking something away. So even though this snake looks like it might be brighter because it doesn't have the red or something, it actually is missing something that's in this snake. Like it has more genes showing, but the color has been taken away. And this one still has all that color. So that's my thought on that. My favorite snake in my collection. Oh, it's Jasmine. Jasmine's my favorite.
I gotta get this all.
And she's gonna be giving birth. She's laying eggs in like 30 days. Nova is a sunglow, and she's my favorite boa. But Jasmine is just my favorite snake. She's a Superdwarf Retic, and she's just a sweetheart. Like she's just. I have 6 Superdwarf Retics, 4 females, 2 males, and Calypso is my favorite just for looks because she's just like almost white and she's beautiful, but she's just not a nice. She's not. She doesn't have the nicest personality. She's a strong character, but Jasmine's a sweetheart. Jasmine will what will she do? She'll just chill with me and let me pet her and hang out with me, and it's just I don't have to worry about being really careful with her. And all of my boas are like that. Like I can just handle all of my boas. I can let them play with each other and mess around with them, and they don't get scared and they don't strike at me or anything. And boas are really my favorite animal to produce and to give people as pets, because I just find that boas are just they're just the best for like easy, sweetheart, easy to care for. You get a lot more interaction. And then the super dwarfs are kind of like hard mode. Just
Yeah, there's a little box.
oh yeah, I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna see if I can grab one. Okay, so Jasmine actually just had her post-ovulation shed, and she just came out, like she was actually there and ready to come, so I had to take her out. But she's my favorite out of all my snakes, just for how she's just, I don't know. She's just a sweetheart and she's just awesome. One should have more male. No. I would do 1-to-1. 1-to-1 is good. I a, I've encountered a lot of actually bigger breeders that do 2 males to each female, but I like 1-to-1. I've done 1-to-2. I've even done 1-to-3, and I don't think that the fertility rates are as good. And that might have been because of temperatures. That could have been because of the male. I'm not sure. Because it's just like it takes years to really test and figure out all these things. Like, so every year you kind of learn a little bit more. But from what I've done, I think that 1-to-1 is good. She's an adult. She might get bigger. She might get another foot or two, but she's pretty manageable. And I have a 75% that is actually larger than she is. And I don't know if she's producing babies, and she's a year older. So that's Ivy. If you've seen the videos, Ivy is bigger, and yeah, yeah, Ivy's bigger than Jasmine is. Jasmine's younger, smaller, and she went this year, so she's got eggs in her right now. I use feeding, so in my Boa Constrictor playlist, I have a video that basically walks you through everything that you need to know to breed. And that shows you like my whole process. She just shed. And she was like waiting to come out. But like you see with the boas how they'll kind of chill. With the super dwarfs they don't stop. She does sometimes, and that's what I like about her. I've had times where we'll just sit in the grass and she'll hang out with me, but she is a little bit hyper today. But I totally trust her. And to be able to, I don't know, I don't trust all of my super dwarfs, but with her, I totally trust her. I'll let her go on my face and do whatever, and I never worry about her going for me. Whereas Calypso, Calypso almost took my eye out once, so. I just find that the super dwarfs do need a little bit more care. Yeah, you want to come say hi? You want to come say hi? You're going to school? We were just talking about that earlier. I think that it has like if it has to be done smartly and it has to be done with purpose. Like, would I just take 2 babies and breed them to each other if I don't have to? No, I wouldn't do it. And I specifically have about like 5 families of boas so that I'm not interbreeding. So I raise this family, I take the babies, then I raise this family, I take the babies, I keep like 1 or 2 from here, 1 or 2 from here, and then I'll breed those together. And then I have other families. So I can keep the line of blood different. And lots like, okay, if you buy a snake that has a specific gene that, let's say, is recessive, and you buy two of them, so it's like if you buy two het albinos, you're putting them together to make albinos, and chances are that they're probably already related anyways, even if, like, from further up in the chain. So if you have to do it, get it done and then do something else. I really like to put visuals to non-visuals. So when you have a visual of any gene and you breed it to anything, even if it's carrying the gene or not, you know that all the babies have that gene. So any snake that you have that is visually carrying a recessive gene, no matter what you breed it to, you know all your babies are het. With if you don't do that, then you're messing around with a whole pile of percentages. You don't know what they're carrying, and it just kind of kills the value of the animal. And then you're sending a whole pile of animals out into the market that are possibly carrying genes that we don't know. My favorite gene for looks. My favorite gene, it's ultra, and it's in superdwarfs. So if you look at superdwarfs, this gene is called platinum or fire, and this is a fire tiger or a platinum fire. And when you breed a platinum to a platinum, the super form is a ultra, and ultra retics are my favorite. I just think they're beautiful. It's kind of like how lots of people like the cows. I just think the ultras are just the best. And they're like, so albinos have, in the retics, there's 3 different lines of regular albino. There's white, purple, and lavender. And with the platinums or the fires, there's 3 different lines. There's leucistic, which is a white snake. There's ivory, which is also kind of like a matte white, like ivory. And then there's the ultras, and the ultras are like these yellow snakes that have like spotted faces or dark faces, so they almost look like they got a bit of dirt on their face, but I think they're super pretty. But with boas, I actually think I like I like sunglows. I think there's not much that beats a beautiful sunglow. I think so many people get caught up in the moonglow craze, and the moonglows, they're still beautiful animals, but I just don't find them as beautiful as the sunglows. When you get a nice sunglow that stands out, they're really beautiful. And it's because there's also there's people that like them without patterns, and then people like them with patterns. So it's like the more pattern and the more crazy it gets, the more they like it. And I kind of like things more that don't have any pattern. But from a breeding perspective, if you're breeding animals that are carrying tons of genes and they don't have any patterns, it's hard to identify what is carrying what. So it gets to the point where it's like, oh, this is an amazing animal, but I'm not really sure what genes it's carrying because it has so many. And you end up with that, I think, more with ball pythons than with boas. But in the next in the next years, the boas are going to have as many genes as ball pythons, probably. It's going to get, but there's not as many people breeding boas. And that's another thing I like about it, because when it comes to ball pythons, if you start off small, you're producing like 5-10 eggs a year. You're not producing like so many animals. When it comes to boas, it's like, okay, I handled 1 litter, then I got 3 litters, then I got 5 litters, and now it's like I made so many last year that I'm just like, you know what, I'm actually producing a little bit more than I want to. So there's dwarf boas. So you can take a dwarf boa and breed it into normal boas. But boas to me don't get overwhelming. I think that the size that they get as adults, even if bigger, is perfect. But also, if they're fed properly, if they aren't overfed, if you overfeed a boa, it gets big. It can get as big, like the thickness, like not the length, but it can get like the thickness of a retic. They can get big and heavy, and I've never liked my animals to be like that. So you have to understand, if you have a 8-foot boa that's as thick as, like, this Jasmine here is 7 or 8 feet. Like, she's 7 or 8 feet, but she's not like, she's slender. She's got like the perfect body. But now you take a 7 or 8 snake and you make it this thick. Now all of a sudden it goes from like a 10-pound snake to a 40-pound snake. And a 40-pound snake is a lot to handle. It's heavy. It's hard to move around and do stuff with. Like, at this size, if Jasmine stayed this size forever, I'd be very happy. I still think she's going to get bigger, but she's so manageable. I can walk around with her, hang out with her. I don't ever feel like she can get away and I have to like chase after her. With Queen, she's 11 feet and it's totally different. It's not as comfortable to hang out with her. It's like it's really kind of a work. It's a job. I have to like wrestle with her and stop her from getting into trouble and going places. With Jasmine, I can just turn around and go like this and we're good. And she'll go do it again and we'll do it again and it's fine. But with Queen, it's like she gets away from you. Charlie is here in the corner. He's hiding. But he's shaking his head. He's like, there's times when he has her. He's like, Matt, I need your help.
Harmless, lovable, beautiful snake.
Okay, we're just doing till 5:30. So if you got any more questions, get them in because I'm finishing up. And basically, I'm gonna show up every Sunday. Usually, I try to do Sunday at 9 a.m. just because it's at the beginning of the day, gives me the whole day to kind of do whatever. I use PVCs, but let me show you what I think is the perfect enclosure. Okay, we'll finish off with that. Hopefully, it doesn't disconnect. Let me move. Okay, so okay, so this enclosure is the best I can do, right? I can't really do any bigger than this. It's in my living room, and my wife already wants to murder me. But right here, you see there's a shelf. This is 5 feet long. It's 3 feet tall, and it has a shelf right in here, so the snake can go up there and hang out at the top. It's gonna have like heat down there, or I might like a radiant panel, a heat panel on top, a little bit of UVB, and over here there's a dowel across. So basically, it gives them somewhere that they can hide underneath the shelf. They can go on top of the shelf. They can climb and crawl all along that like pole, and I could keep a Superdwarf Retic in there, and they're going to be good in there their whole life. It's going to be perfect. And so I want to make more like that for my boas. And basically downsize. So right now, yeah, okay. So right now I have most of my boas in 4 feet 4 feet by 2 feet by 1 foot. So what I want to do is I want to upgrade them to 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, so that I could almost give them like a double enclosure and do what I did there. So give them the shelf, give them the pole, so they can climb, they can perch, and they have everything. Just a little bit more enrichment than just a space where they can hang out and go from one side to the other. And I think like, and that's why I think it is a lot better to keep less, get really expensive snakes, and put them in really beautiful enclosures. Don't get a whole pile of cheap snakes and shove them into the tiniest homes you can give them. And I'm guilty of doing that. Like, I've done that. And now I want to go backwards. I want to get rid of them and basically not get, like, find them good homes and then slowly have more homes kind of like that. Unless, well, I'll have drawers, because it's just drawers and shelves are the best way to do it when you're breeding. But I'm working really hard at kind of teaching people to give their snakes bigger, better homes, and even telling them, like, look, take your time. You know, if this isn't the right one and you want to get it later, just save up, get the one you really want, give it a big home, really enjoy it, put that time into it, give it that love, because it's just like, you're going to enjoy your animal so much more. You're going to give your animal such a better life. The one thing that is harder in a bigger enclosure, it is harder to keep the right humidity. And humidity is overlooked by people probably more than anything else. If you're going to have a bigger enclosure, you need to make sure that they have the right humidity. And we're going to leave it at that. It was good to see you all. And, well, I didn't get to see you, but it was nice talking to you, and thanks for adding to the conversation, because it's so much better when it's just not me sitting here by myself. And thanks, Charlie, for coming for the visit.
Thank you for
You know,
having me.
we're gonna check if the African house snake ate, and I'll end on that. Oh, it didn't. I think you know what's so terrible? I think the mouse is crawling towards the snake like it's the mom, like, hey, give me milk.
Yeah.
Oh, so terrible. Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing, right? I think just you can still make good money, but do it smart. Like, be smart. Don't be greedy. When you're greedy, you pay for it. And like, I was talking to my friend before about having a hair salon. I have a hair salon. I work 2 days a week, and I charge good money for my work. I go, I work, charge my money, get my money, and I'll make more in 2 days than most people will in a week. But if I was greedy, I would fill the salon full of people working for me and get them all doing more haircuts, probably charging less, doing more volume. I'm going to make way more money that way. But then I'm going to have no time, and then I don't get to raise my daughter. When you look at what lots of these breeders are doing, like you look at Brian Barchuk and his zoo, you look now at Snake Discovery and her reptile zoo. Like, these zoos and stuff are great for them, and they're gonna, like, in some ways it's good for the hobby, in some ways it's bad. Like, Brian Barchuk, if it wasn't for him, so many of us wouldn't even know about snakes as pets and stuff. So I think, like, this part, like the showing people and teaching people about them, that's great. And we should all kind of be doing that and add to the love. But just, let's say I have hundreds of people that start wanting to buy snakes off me. I'm not going to produce more and more snakes to meet that demand. I won't do it, because then I become a slave to it. And then it just becomes a business. I enjoy it as a hobby, I enjoy it as fun, and if a whole pile of people start wanting my snakes, then I'm just going to bump the prices on them. And then people can say, "Oh my God, he's charging $500 for a snake that other people are charging $200 for." And I'll say, "Yes, I am." And you know why? Because people want it and they want to buy it off me. So like that's my way of balancing it. It's not about money, it's about time. You have to really enjoy your time. And even now, having like 100 snakes, I'm not enjoying them as much because I'm spending so much time cleaning them. So I gotta go now and spend an hour in the snake room cleaning crap and giving them fresh water. And that's not fun. It's kind of like a chore. So I'd rather get it to the point where I'm just taking care of a little bit less, but still making money because getting more valuable or more rare animals. And I never really thought of it as much like that, but now I think of it like if I'm gonna buy a snake, I'm gonna spend $1,000 or $2,000 on that snake because I'd rather have like 5 snakes that are worth like $2,000 to $5,000 than 20 snakes that are worth $100. And those 20 snakes that are worth $100, I could breed and sell them like that because I can sell $100 snakes like hotcakes. But I don't want to sell a whole pile of $100 snakes because you're creating a you're overpopulating the market with lower quality animals or just cheaper animals. People are buying them, they're easier to buy, they're easier than to be neglected and to not be taken care of. When somebody spends $1,000 on a snake, chances are they're going to take better care of it, and it's terrible to kind of say that sometimes, but it's just how it is. Like people, same thing with haircuts. Some people go and spend $200 a haircut. Is a haircut worth $200? Like, not really. But people like to do it to be like, look, I spent $200 on my hair. So do I want to be the person that charges someone $200 a haircut and works like a couple hours a day? Or do I want to be the person that's charging $20 a haircut, doing 30 haircuts a day, and by the end of the day, I'm passing out? The volume is always going to do better. So like Walmart makes more money than Gucci or Prada because they're producing so much. They're dealing with volume. Like look at how well Costco's doing. But I don't really care about any of that. I want to create beautiful snakes for myself, so I have the best ones and I keep them and have them as pets and enjoy them, and then all the other ones sell to people that are going to take good care of them. So that's basically why I'm here. I'm here to teach people about snakes, to teach them about like I'm happy to teach other breeders about business. I'm happy to teach newer people about snakes, and I've basically taken care of myself from the time I was 19. So I ran a successful hair salon from the time I was a child. So it's like I understand all that stuff. And I'm happy to kind of share that with people because there's so many people that don't think that way and get the wrong ideas stuck in their head. And they just think, I'm just going to go and buy 2 boas and breed them and make a ton of money. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that. You're not going to make a lot of money off them unless you've spent a lot of money on them in the first place. And even if you, let's say you did go and buy 2 $2,000 boas, you breed them together and now you have 20 boas that are worth, let's say, $3,000 each. Are you going to be able to find 20 people that are going to buy $3,000 boas off you? I'm telling you, probably not. You're going to end up taking those boas and selling them to the pet store or like getting rid of them or something. Like I don't know what you do. Because if you did something like that, if I produce too many animals that are of too high of a value, if I give them for cheap, I ruin my own market. And if I don't sell them, then I have to take care of all of them. So it's something to think about. Now you got me talking too long. So anyways, have a good week, everyone, and I will see you next Sunday or during the week in some videos. Although I was producing like way too many videos. Like, I'm trying to get out my old videos and finish them, but I have to slow down a bit because I get obsessed with things, and I have to spend more time with the baby and everything. So it was fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.